The society is united all over the world. It must be understood that the global Jewish community is the property of the global predictor, and everything that we live in is also ancient Egyptian slavery. But with slaves already at the level of consciousness, that is, the slave system has become softer, and the slave even takes pride in their bondage. What heights has he reached in this slaveholding system? Is there anything for you at all? The progress of culture over the span of 3,000 years. In the next step, we should familiarize ourselves with the concept of money, the invariant in the price list and means of payment. But here, what I will quickly tell you now is the history of the emergence of money, how I will quickly show you, and then I will show you on the computer. That is, the exchange of products initially existed, but it was unpredictable. That is, there was barter trade, and people exchanged, for example, my skin for your grain. I exchanged a bag of grain for several skins, depending on where someone lived and what they possessed. To increase predictability, a system of fairs was created. To enhance efficiency, universal methods of product exchange were required. Once a year, you would come and see what goods you needed to acquire. And you already know in advance that at the fair, you will find what you need. To enhance efficiency, universal methods of product exchange were required. Why is the fair held once every 6 months or a year when you need to live year-round? Therefore, to enhance efficiency, metal coins, money, were introduced, and the right to mint them was held by the state. In barter trade, the transaction is instantaneous. That is, I have furs, you have grain. Bang! And it was exchanged. But when money appeared, they made it possible to stretch the transaction over time. Thus, the practice of Geschäft making emerged. That is, parasitism on the operations of product exchange. Money provided the opportunity to extract profit without producing anything, simply due to price fluctuations on goods. For example, I make fur coats in the summer. They don't buy them. It seems like winter is far away. But what if winter frosts come? I'll buy fur coats, and money can set a higher price. Or vice versa. I'll waste grain. Everyone has a low full price. So I hid the grain, e.g. serves. Then, when in the spring they ate everything, bam, I raised the price so high that it's crazy. Therefore, those who understood how to engage in Geschäftmachertum, that is, to deceive people, to parasitize on people's lives, could benefit. For some, war is a blessing, while for others it is a curse. That is, people are dying of hunger, while he, the moneylender, is skinning them alive for the price, putting them into debt. Therefore, the rabbinical authority and the global predictor gave organizational forms to Geschäftmachertum on a global scale within the framework of biblical Talmudic culture, making it a means of controlling the world, countries, and peoples. Gold became the leading commodity in money, and gold became the invariant in the price list. What does invariant in the price list mean? The price list refers to current prices, while the invariant is both intrinsic value and a means of measuring the value of other products. Gold is gradually becoming just a coin. Coins are gradually becoming merely carriers of information about what? As an equivalent of products. That is, in other words, each distinct product should have its own and unique price as an equivalent. And these coins are no longer just gold, and they no longer possess intrinsic value. That is, they are now only means of payment. That is, they are, generally speaking, in an extremely generalized form. Again, goods and services, coins, money, these are numbers. That is, numbers have started to correlate with turnover. That is, numbers have become self-sufficient in themselves for buying and selling. This was noticed, and counterfeiters appeared. Here it is important to pause on the darkness of Marxism, the immorality of Karl Marx. Here Karl Marx provided such a formula: money is the alienated essence of labor and existence. Money is the alienated essence of labor and existence. This is incorrect. Why? He mixed different concepts in the word money. Again, everywhere there is this substitution of concepts. Money in the sense of means of payment in buying and selling, is an essence generated by society, and mutually alienating a person from labor when one can parasitize on money and from existence within it, and labor and existence from the person, as the absence of money places a person outside of society. If he is unemployed, he is out of work, meaning he does not participate in social life, unemployed, and out of existence. Why? Because if there is no money, you cannot live, you cannot feed your children. Then what? A noose around the neck and suicide. Look at how many suicides we have in the country in this sense now. What are they caused by? They leave life due to lack of money. Or compare this with the morality of Karl Marx. What they hung on our ears, like noodles in the form of ideological dogmas. Let's continue. A certain amount of means of payment is required for the exchange product. That is, here is the exchange product, and there should be exactly as much money as the exchange product being traded. And this exchange product depends on the price list, the volume of turnover in monetary form, the speed of payment circulation, and so on. If there are excess funds in relation to these parameters, then purchasing power is lost. This leads to an increase in the price list. This could not happen in barter trade. In the case of a monetary form invariant, fluctuations in purchasing power exist. You give me boots, I give you fish, and so on. In the case of a monetary form invariant, fluctuations in purchasing power exist. But they are smoothed out, as coins are made of precious metals, and when there is an excess, they settle as treasures among the elite. And when there is a shortage, in times of need, the impoverished elite are compelled to sell their treasures, and those go to the mint. Indeed, by the way, this is what determines the Rothschild fixing, which we will discuss below. But remember this. So naturally, smoothing occurs when there is an abundance of precious metals. They settle as treasures. When there is a shortage, the impoverished elite sell their treasures to maintain their elite existence, and those go to the mint. This characterizes the state of the economy and society. But there are few precious metals, and paper instruments have emerged. That is debt and credit obligations. They took the form of credit money. Banknotes, promissory notes, treasury bills, bank checks, credit cards. There is a process of increasing paper money in circulation. They are accompanied by a system of guaranteed exchange. What is this? This number on paper corresponds to the amount of gold in coins. This was commonly and widely referred to as the gold standard. That is, one state has 200 tons of gold, while another has 20 tons, 1-to-10 ratio. But the process of accumulation is ongoing. The owner of the paper is in a worse position than the owner of the coins. Excess paper money is trying to be exchanged for gold, but there may not be enough gold for everyone, and there isn't. And then you understand, you print money, you have been trusted, you want to live well, you can print more money than needed, thus you are a source of inflation. And now I report to you that our central bank is not subordinate to the state. And Gerashchenko, whom Putin removed, was not subordinate to the government or anyone. And Putin said that the central bank should be subordinated. And the central bank prints money, it issues means of payment and withdraws worn out banknotes. This is the same in the States. The States were conquered by this mafia. Someone considers this a depression. It was a special maneuver by the global mafia, the Great Depression in 1929 in the United States, to completely subordinate the states to the global financial mafia. This is what happened then. It was also done by Masonic structures, which included the President of the United States. Therefore, through the lens of governance, one must look at all these historical events, including in the economy, with completely different eyes. So, since there are more paper dollars now in the States, they, in fact, proudly boast that the printing press produces dollars many times more than the pump extracts oil. That is, the dollar is not backed by anything, meaning there is an excess of dollars. This became the basis for the start of our perestroika. That is, our country was made a dumping ground for unbacked dollar paper by the hands and brains of that mindless Gorbachev, with whom we entered the global economy. That is, we saved America from the collapse of the United States by the hands of Gorbachev. The people unconsciously understand that it is better to have gold than paper. Therefore, they try to exchange, but there is not enough for everyone. And then, at the Jamaica Conference, the International Monetary Fund abolished the gold standard in 1976 because it had already exhausted itself. Because the production of all goods and services began to be done with the help of electricity. Up until the first half of the last century, the 20th, all goods were made by the muscle power of humans and animals. That is, a plane, a saw, everything, either a person or a horse, would plow the furrow. And now everything is done with electric traction. Back then, as options for anti-value, one could take anything. One could take grain, and during the reign of Hammurabi, there was such an attempt. One could take rams, but they took gold. You reap what you sow. Remember, Boratino Polic sowed coins, and Fox Alice, and Cat Basil, and he, meaning charmed. So indeed, these same Fox Alice and Cat Basil have very truly charmed our leaders as well. The gold standard can no longer be returned. As soon as all goods and services began to be produced with electric traction, electricity should become the basis for currency equivalence. Let's put it this way. In country X, there is a lot of Sayano-Shushenskaya gas, while in country Y, there are only windmills. Who will produce more goods? Who probably has more electricity? That's it. How to compare the exchange rate and other things. Here's a bun. It costs a ruble, let's say, and a brick. Energy has been spent on the bun. How to relate the cost of the bun and the brick, and how much electricity has been spent. To get a bun, you need to sow grain, which means spending gasoline on the seeder. Then you need to harvest with a combine. After that, it needs to be kneaded and baked in a bakery. That is, electricity, delivered to the store. There you have the cost of a bun and the brick. You also need to extract clay, knead it and fire it at the brick factory, which also requires electricity. Therefore, depending on how much is spent on a bun, a brick, a table, a suit, fabric, everything can be measured in electricity. That's why later, when we consider it, we can now use only electricity as the gold standard. But it will be fair. And we Rothschilds, Morgans, Oppenheimers, and so on, we parasitize on the labor of others. We need justice, no need. Here we invented the fixing. What is it, Rothschild? Fixation. Twice a day, in one of the London banks, an international mafia meeting takes place with 5-7 people chaired by Rothschild. And these people, at their own discretion, having very specific goals in each country, set the price of gold per troy ounce. And now remember what we discussed a few minutes ago. When the situation in the state is one way, the elite buys gold. And when it is another, the elite sells gold. Therefore, knowing the volumes of gold sales and purchases in different countries, they understand how to regulate the price per troy ounce. That's all. Therefore, they can lift and save any country, or they can crush it like cockroaches. And the goals regarding each country are also clear. There are Takhanovites and those who smooth things over, and there are... That's it. Here is the role of fixing. Therefore, one of the Rothschilds presides, and there are participants from 5 major London banks, and the Zurich Gnomes, that is, from Switzerland again. And the main conclusion is from what we have reviewed about the history of money. It is important that here, everything we have discussed, the division of the conceptual boundary of invariance in the pricing and means of payment, allows us to distinguish cheap mayors and their hierarchy, while political economy considers them as 2 different functions of money. It is a carrier, maximally generalized with information about the state of the national economy. Such a division allows us to distinguish cheap mahars and their hierarchy, and their hierarchy, and the hierarchies of their corporation, and the political anti-century considers them as two different functions, if sabemos, still in error wrong. Here is the exchange product scheme in front of you. What is presented on it? There is the market of the production sphere. You see a large one in the center. On the right is the market of final consumption, which is the sphere of the market for personal paid consumption. On the left is the state apparatus, which manages everything. And at the top are hired personnel and all non-entrepreneurs, while at the bottom are entrepreneurs who are not subordinate to the state. Arrows indicate the flow of money, credits, investments, salaries, and various consumption funds. Within the market of the production sphere, note three powerful branches. We need to consider within the market of the production sphere to highlight three powerful branches. Here, the food item, what people need, is agriculture, fishing. In the food industry, and it goes to the market of final consumption. Electricity generation, its processing, production, and also to the market. Raw material extraction, after which the production of various materials takes place, from which means of production are made, thus products for human consumption, and it also goes to the market. Well, all of this is accompanied by transport, communication, and science. There are, you see, free public consumption funds, schools, healthcare, and art. Well, take a close look at this scheme, and guarding this scheme, you see products flow in one direction, while money, means of payment, flow in the other direction. The arrows are drawn at the top. Therefore, this scheme is not a type of socio-economic formation, but a functional scheme. And this scheme also includes the slave system, where private populations have means of production. In the conditions of feudalism, part of the population relates to the means of production during the period of people fulfilling feudal obligations. In the conditions of capitalism, all people are either hired personnel or entrepreneurs, while in the conditions of pseudo-socialism, everyone is equal. That is, indeed, this scheme is appropriate for any system. The scheme can be projected both globally in the interstate division of labor within transnational corporations, and in the intrastate division of labor. Here, by the circulation of flows, you can distinguish products going in one direction and means of payment in another. Here is your scheme, but you can take a closer look. You can stop your VCR or computer. In the Marxist-Leninist form, it is impossible to do all of this. Why? Because in Marxism and Leninism, there is the production of means of production and the production of consumer goods, the so-called Group A and Group B. That's how we were taught, and the exchange of capital between them. And where in this scheme of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels are the sectors that serve Group A and Group B? Although there are markets, spheres of production, and spheres of consumption, to only see in them the production of means of production and the production of consumer goods, and not to see management, not to be involved in the multi-sectoral complex. What is this? Ordinary nonsense. Therefore, this scheme of Marx and Engels is a fiction. But this scheme underlies the entire Marxist-Leninist political economy and explains all these processes. This is also a reason why everything collapsed. If we place product flows and means of payment on the scheme, it will already be a scheme of the credit and financial system imposed on the sectors of the national economy. And then it becomes clear why, Nothing connects the credit and financial system with real production and distribution of products, except for the objective statistics of human subjectivism. Because both real products and means of payment pass through one person simultaneously. And all of this, each society has its own statistics of subjectivism, its own credit and financial system. And therefore, guided by this subjectivism, one can enter a mode of either self-regulation, guided by, as we said, wisdom, knowledge, homegrown understanding, and so on. Or it can be done with irresponsible advice from abroad and copying laws from developed countries. Speaking about the water cycle in nature, One must recall Kirchhoff's law for means of payment in the credit and financial system. Karl Marx's relation to electricity, where something flows out. He indeed tried to refute this matter by imposing the concept of constant capital in the structures of society. And in closed systems, what is the total monetary profit? Equal to the emission of means of payment, how much new money is injected, and the depletion of means of payment, that is, how much is withdrawn from worn-out banknotes that have become tattered and frayed. Therefore, from here on, you see, everything is very simple. Any private profit is, in essence, inevitably someone else's loss. And now remember again this scheme that we just looked at here in this scheme. If something has decreased in one industry, rather, profit has occurred in the form of money, then that amount of money has decreased in another industry. That's all. In other words, there are no miracles. Therefore, from here, remember the scheme we discussed. Profit of any industry is the private profit of that industry. And the losses of other industries are one side of it. And on the other side, this loss affects the solvency of the industry. Why? Because the industry that essentially has no money inevitably falls out of the social labor union. But if an industry has fallen out and its products are necessary, then its absence leads to the collapse of the entire national economy. Those who need the products of this industry, by the way, if you think about these strikes that occurred, they also contribute to the collapse. Why? Because here you have the miners who, without realizing it, were fulfilling the tasks of the world behind the scenes. Remember, Yeltsin and Mezhdorechinsk promised the miners, "I will lie on the tracks." This means they were the tracks. As a result, there is no coal. The power plants are idle. The power plants are idle, which means the blast furnaces are not operating. Furnaces are operating, but there is no steel. No steel, no combines. No combines, no grain. That's it. Therefore, they allow these strikes, that's all. They need it. It is a means of control. What kind? Achievements of the collapse of the national economy of the country. Therefore, based on what we have discussed, the state is obliged to implement a directive-targeted policy of taxes, subsidies, and grants for the people. The state is obliged to ensure the effective use of capacities in all sectors. To ensure employment for the population, there should be no unemployment, because we have discussed that without work, a worker has no money and falls out of life. Right now on television I see, I don't know which one, they are showing these boys, young men. Of course we can judge them, but let's think about the cause and effect relationships. There is no work in his area. Parents are unemployed from the village. What to do? There is no money. You have to live. He goes to Moscow to earn some extra money. In Moscow, you need to find a job, but there they are expelling migrant workers. Where to? But I want to eat. He snatched a mobile phone from some girl. He did something wrong, it's clear. To the police. To the police where? To prison. Is he a criminal? Well, a criminal. But who made him a criminal? And the situation in the country that has been deliberately created has led to this. And this Russian guy is going to prison. What will he learn in prison? What? Something good. This is how they oppress all of us together. There should be no unemployment. The government that does all this is criminal towards the people, not these Russian guys who are sent to prison. Therefore, eradicating crime and fighting against these is pointless. We need to eliminate the root cause of crime. And the root cause of crime lies in this shameless, inhumane concept. The third task, we need to eliminate inter-industry competition, because it's foolish in this holistic scheme when a village competes with the space industry. Absurd, just absurd. If the government does not do all this and does not understand, then it is either anti-people, which is a lesser measure, or apostate, which is a greater measure. And there is no forgiveness for all these state officials. And if our market-oriented individuals, having pushed aside our planners, organized inter-industry competition, it means that both are equally foolish as it is clear to everyone that they cannot compete with each other for the standard of living. People engaged in agriculture and people involved in space exploration, competition between industries, a further important thought. Competition between industries is competition among people for the standard of living. And what does that mean? This is pitting people against each other. Here is the principle of divide and rule. Within, state competition flows into global intra-industry competition. It's very simple. We have already said that for a US farmer to thrive, Russian Vanya in the village of Sidorovka must be poor. That's all. What do you think? Can't we produce these chicken legs in our regions? We can. We live differently than we work. And not only because of that, but also because of how we are managed. This needs to be understood. Because people's labor must be organized. You can grow it in the village of Sidorovka, but how will you sell it? And who will take care of it? Therefore, the national economy of the country must be managed in a balanced manner, eliminating inter-industry competition. What we have declared is only possible in an anti-totalitarian society. It will not be possible to do this in this little pyramid. So, what is this about again? No private problem will be solved until we change the concept of societal development. That is, this destructive concept needs to be replaced with our concept of theocracy. It is a price list. There is no understanding of this either in the West or here. Price list is considered to be a list of prices for products of a certain nomenclature according to the standards and conditions of its production and delivery to the consumer. But this only addresses the external side of the phenomenon. Where does the price come from? Complete satisfaction of societal needs leads to the disappearance of prices. Let's think about it. There used to be no paid parking in Moscow. You could leave your car wherever you wanted. Now you can't stop anywhere. There are paid parking lots everywhere. Why? Because there is no space. That is, when the price of a product appears, it is when there is a shortage. Remember that joker Rakin who makes these jokers laugh even now, while the whole country is crying? These jokers are not such simple people, just so you know. Because when a malicious, rude, and unpleasant phenomenon occurs in society's life,